Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Easy English Spark. I'm so excited to have you here with me today. In this video, we're going to explore how to enhance your English listening and speaking skills, build your confidence, and take your fluency to the next level. Throughout this journey, we'll cover everything from overcoming self-doubt, using different resources, to the most important rule of all: never stop practicing. So let's dive in and light up your English journey together. Chapter 1: Starting the Journey. Hello, everyone. I'm Selena, and today I want to share with you a story that changed my life. It's a story about how learning English opened doors for me and helped me grow in ways I never expected. I remember when I first started learning English, I was nervous. The thought of speaking in a language I wasn't familiar with felt intimidating. I didn't know many words, and I worried about making mistakes. My accent wasn't perfect, and I thought that people might laugh at me. But you know what? I realized something really important. Everyone starts somewhere, and it's okay to be imperfect. Learning English didn't happen overnight. It wasn't magic. It was slow and sometimes difficult. But I never gave up. Just like a baby learning to walk, I had to take it step by step. At first, I felt scared every time I had to speak. But I told myself, it's all right to be scared as long as you keep trying. The more I practiced, the more I got used to it. And I want to tell you the same thing. If you're just starting, don't worry if things feel hard. It's part of the process. You know, I started by listening. I didn't understand everything at first, but I realized that even if I didn't understand the words, I was still learning. I was getting used to how English sounds. It was like listening to music. It didn't matter if I knew every word as long as I kept hearing the rhythm. Over time, it became easier to recognize words and understand the general meaning. And guess what? That made me feel more confident. Also started reading, but I didn't dive into complex books. I began with simple stories. Just like how a child starts with picture books. I didn't understand every single word, but I didn't let that stop me. Instead of focusing on the words I didn't know, I focused on the story. If I didn't understand something, I'd look it up. Little by little, I started to understand more and more. The more I read, the more words I learned, and the more confident I became in my ability to express myself. I remember the first time I tried to speak. I was sitting in a cafe with some friends. They asked me a question, and I was terrified to answer because I wasn't sure if my English would be good enough. But you know what? I decided to try. I took a deep breath, and I spoke. I made mistakes. A lot of mistakes. But my friends didn't laugh at me. Instead, they helped me. They corrected me gently and encouraged me to keep going. That moment taught me something very important. People don't mind your mistakes as long as you're trying. It was a huge lesson for me. I realized that I didn't need to be perfect. I just needed to keep going. And the more I spoke, the less afraid I became. Mistakes weren't something to fear. They were part of the process. If I never made mistakes, how could I ever improve? Learning English is just like learning to ride a bike or swim. At first, it feels scary and awkward, but once you start, it gets easier. You might wobble or stumble, but each time you get up, you get stronger. That's how learning a language works. The more you practice, the more natural it feels. One thing I want to emphasize is that learning English is not about how fast you learn. It's about consistency. If you practice a little every day, even if it's just for 10 minutes, you'll see progress. And that progress, no matter how small, is important. Don't focus on being perfect. Focus on improving a little bit each day. So, whether you're just starting or you've been learning for a while, remember this. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to feel nervous. The important thing is that you keep going. Keep practicing. Keep listening, reading, writing, and speaking. Over time, you'll look back and realize just how far you've come. I know it can be hard at times. There will be days when you feel like giving up. But don't. Keep going and you'll get better. Just like how I felt when I first started. You might be scared, but believe me, the journey is worth it. And before you know it, you'll be speaking English more confidently than you ever thought possible. Remember, the journey of learning English is not a race. It's a marathon. Take your time, enjoy the process, and be proud of every step you take. Because every step, no matter how small, brings you closer to your goal. Chapter 2: Overcoming the Fear. Hello again, everyone. In this chapter, I want to talk about something that holds many of us back when learning English. Fear. When I first started learning English, I had a lot of fear. Fear of making mistakes. Fear of speaking out loud. Fear of being judged by others. But I want to share with you how I overcame these fears, and I hope it can help you too. Let's start with my first experience. I remember sitting with some friends at a coffee shop. They were all speaking English fluently, and I felt nervous. I knew I wanted to join the conversation, but every time I opened my mouth, I was worried about making a mistake. What if I said something wrong? What if they didn't understand me? What if they laughed at me? These thoughts ran through my mind, and I stayed quiet. But deep down, I knew that staying silent wouldn't help me improve. So, I told myself, you have to try. You can't let fear stop you. I took a deep breath and decided to speak. At first, my words were shaky and I could feel my heart racing. I wasn't confident at all. But you know what happened? They didn't laugh. They didn't judge me. Instead, they smiled and encouraged me. They helped me when I made mistakes, corrected me gently, and even praised me for trying. That moment was a turning point for me. I realized that mistakes are part of the process, and no one would judge me for trying. I want to remind you, making mistakes is not a bad thing. In fact, it's the best way to learn. If you never make a mistake, you won't be able to identify areas for improvement. And without improvement, you can't grow. So, if you make a mistake while speaking English, don't panic. It's completely normal. And it means you're trying. It means you're learning. Let's talk about how fear holds us back. Sometimes the fear of making a mistake can feel overwhelming. We start thinking that if we speak incorrectly, others will laugh or look down on us. That's how I felt too. But over time, I learned that people are kind and they want to help you, not hurt you. The reality is, most people appreciate the effort it takes to speak another language. They understand that it's not easy. So, don't be afraid of what others might think. Focus on the fact that you're improving. Another thing that helped me was reminding myself that English is a skill, and like any other skill, it takes practice. When I first learned to ride a bike, I fell many times. But every time I fell, I got back up, learned from it, and tried again. Speaking English is the same. At first, it may feel awkward or uncomfortable, but each time you speak, you get a little better. Every time you try, you become a little bit more confident. I remember feeling nervous the first time I spoke in front of a group in English. My voice was shaky, and I felt like everyone was staring at me. But I took a deep breath and reminded myself that it's okay to be nervous. I didn't need to be perfect. I just needed to try my best. And that's the key. Trying. Even if you make mistakes, even if you get a word wrong, trying is what matters. And I promise you, the more you try, the less you will fear making mistakes. Here's something that really helped me: practice in private. At first, when I was too scared to speak in front of others, I practiced speaking to myself. It may sound funny, but I'd look in the mirror and practice speaking English. I would ask myself questions, then answer them out loud. I also recorded myself speaking and listened to it later. This helped me hear my mistakes and correct them on my own. Plus, practicing like this built my confidence and made me feel more comfortable with my own voice. If you're afraid to speak English in front of others, start small. You don't have to speak in front of a large group right away. Start by speaking with a friend or a language partner. If you don't have someone to practice with, that's okay too. Practice with yourself. The key is to get used to the idea of speaking in English, little by little. One thing that really made a difference for me was remembering why I was learning English in the first place. For me, I wanted to connect with more people, explore different cultures, and open up opportunities for my future. Whenever I felt nervous or scared, I would think about my goal, my reason for learning. This gave me the strength to keep going, even when I felt uncertain. You might also feel afraid to ask for help, thinking that it will make you seem less confident. But I want you to understand something important. Asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. When you ask for help, you're showing that you care about improving. Everyone needs help at some point, and there's no shame in it. In fact, it will help you grow faster. So don't be afraid to ask questions when you're stuck, whether it's about pronunciation, grammar, or vocabulary. People are often more than happy to help. Here's another tip. Take it one step at a time. If you're feeling overwhelmed by the idea of speaking English or making mistakes, break it down into smaller, manageable goals. Maybe today, you'll focus on learning 5 new words. Tomorrow, you'll try to use those words in a sentence. The next day, you'll practice speaking those sentences out loud. Over time, these small steps will build up, and you'll see just how much progress you've made. And remember, confidence comes with time. It doesn't happen overnight. The more you practice, the more you put yourself out there, the more confident you'll become. At first, it might feel scary, but with each day that passes, it gets easier. Fear is natural, but it shouldn't stop you from moving forward. You are capable of learning, growing, and speaking English confidently. So, if you're afraid of making mistakes, if you're nervous about speaking, if you feel unsure, remember this. It's okay to feel scared. The most important thing is that you keep going. You are learning. You are growing. And most importantly, you are brave for trying. The next time you feel fear creeping in, take a deep breath, smile, and remember that every step you take brings you closer to becoming fluent. Keep going, keep speaking, and never stop learning. Chapter 3: The Power of Listening. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Chapter 3, where we'll explore something that is absolutely essential when learning English: listening. Listening is often overlooked, but I can tell you from my experience that it is one of the most powerful tools in language learning. When I first started learning English, I struggled a lot with speaking and understanding what people were saying. I would hear them talking so fast, and I felt like I couldn't keep up. But as time went on, I realized something crucial. Listening is the foundation of everything. It's the first step towards not only understanding a language, but also using it confidently. You might be wondering, why is listening so important? Well, the more you listen, the more you begin to understand how the language works. English isn't just about memorizing words or grammar rules. It's about hearing how words are used in context, how sentences are formed, and how the rhythm and flow of the language feel. The more you listen, the easier it is to understand and speak. Listening helps you get used to the sounds of the language, and over time, this familiarity will allow you to speak more naturally. One of the first things I did was surround myself with English, even if I didn't understand everything at first. I started listening to music, watching movies, and listening to podcasts in English. At first, it was difficult. I could barely understand what they were saying, and I found myself rewinding the same sentence multiple times just to catch a word. But here's the thing, that's okay. The key is persistence. Just like when you're learning to ride a bike, you might fall a few times before you get the hang of it. Similarly, with listening, it might be tough at first, but don't let that discourage you. You see, listening is a skill that improves with time and practice. Even if you don't understand every single word, just by listening, you're training your brain to recognize familiar words and phrases. Your brain is absorbing the sounds, the intonation, and the rhythm of the language without you even realizing it. Over time, those small moments of listening add up, and soon you'll find yourself understanding more than you thought was possible. It's like building muscle. You don't get stronger overnight, but with consistent effort, you'll see progress. Here's something that helped me a lot: listening actively. At first, I was just passively listening to English, letting it wash over me without really paying attention. But as I got more serious about learning, I realized that to really improve, I needed to focus on what I was hearing. I started to listen actively, meaning I paid attention to the sounds, the pronunciation, and the context. I listened for the main idea of what was being said, even if I didn't catch every word. This helped me stay engaged and start understanding the message even if I didn't know all the words. For example, when I watched a movie in English, I didn't worry too much about every word. Instead, I focused on the context. What was happening in the scene? How were the characters reacting to each other? I used that context to understand the meaning, even if I didn't understand every single word. Over time, I found myself understanding more and more of the conversation, and it felt like a huge win every time I understood something without needing to look up a translation. Now, I know that some of you might be thinking, but what if I don't understand anything? That's perfectly normal. When I started, I didn't understand much either. But here's the secret. Don't worry about understanding everything at once. Start by focusing on the general meaning. Don't get bogged down by trying to understand every individual word or sentence. Instead, listen for the general message, and over time, your understanding will improve. Think of it like reading a book. You don't need to understand every word to get the meaning of the story. Also, try listening with subtitles. When I watched movies in English, I used subtitles to help me follow along. I'd read the subtitles while listening to the words being spoken. This way, I could see the words and hear how they were pronounced. It helped me connect the written word with the spoken word, and that made understanding much easier. Eventually, as my listening skills improved, I didn't need the subtitles anymore, but they were incredibly helpful in the beginning. Another thing I recommend is listening to different accents. English is spoken in so many different countries, and people have different ways of speaking. At first, I found it difficult to understand different accents, but I learned that it's important to get used to all of them. Whether it's British English, American English, or Australian English, each accent has its own way of pronouncing words and expressing ideas. By listening to a variety of accents, you'll become more comfortable understanding English no matter who is speaking. So don't limit yourself to one accent. Expose yourself to as many as possible. You can also use podcasts to improve your listening skills. There are many podcasts designed specifically for English learners. These podcasts usually speak slowly and clearly, making it easier to understand. Listening to podcasts also helps you get used to different topics and vocabularies. I listened to podcasts about things I was interested in, whether it was science, technology, or culture. And guess what? I not only learned English, but I also learned a lot about other topics too. So find something that interests you and listen to it in English. It will make the process much more enjoyable. And don't forget about audiobooks. Audiobooks are a fantastic tool for improving listening. When you listen to a book being read, You get to hear the pronunciation of words and how they're used in context. Plus, you can listen to audiobooks during your daily activities, while cooking, cleaning, or even walking. This makes it easy to fit language practice into your day, and it helps you keep the language fresh in your mind. Now here's a tip that helped me a lot when I was starting. Repeat what you hear. If you hear a sentence or a phrase that you like, pause the audio and try to repeat it out loud. This will help you with pronunciation and will also make you more comfortable speaking in English. I did this with my favorite songs, movies, and podcasts. It's like mimicking the way native speakers talk, and it's a great way to improve your speaking skills too. Remember, listening every day is key. You don't have to spend hours listening to English, but try to incorporate it into your daily routine. Even if it's just for 10 or 15 minutes a day, it will make a difference over time. The more you listen, the easier it will become to understand and speak. You'll start recognizing words, understanding sentences more clearly, and hearing the language in a way that feels natural. In the beginning, it might feel like you're not improving as quickly as you'd like, but trust me, every little bit counts. Every time you listen, you're getting better. Don't be discouraged if things seem slow at first. Over time, you'll realize that you understand more than you thought you could. So, keep listening. Keep engaging with English, and don't worry if you don't get everything right away. The more you expose yourself to the language, the more comfortable you'll become. Listening isn't just about understanding words. It's about connecting with the language, feeling its rhythm, and becoming one with it. Keep going, and remember that with each step you take, you're getting closer to becoming fluent. Chapter 4. Reading to Improve. Hello everyone, and welcome to Chapter 4. In this chapter, we're going to explore one of the most exciting and rewarding parts of learning English: reading. When I first started learning English, reading was one of the hardest skills for me. The words were new, the sentences were long and confusing, and I often felt overwhelmed. But over time, I realized that reading is one of the most powerful ways to improve your English. It helps you build your vocabulary, understand grammar and context, and even improves your speaking skills. Let me tell you a little bit about my experience. When I started reading in English, it wasn't easy. The first book I picked up was full of words I didn't know, and the sentences seemed way too long. But I didn't give up. I kept reading, even though it was difficult. At first, I only understood bits and pieces of what I was reading. But each time I picked up the book, I understood a little more. Slowly, I started to enjoy the process of reading. The more I read, the more I improved. So, why is reading so important? Reading helps you get familiar with sentence structures and grammar in a way that is natural and engaging. Unlike grammar exercises, reading shows you how grammar works in real-life situations. For example, you'll see how verbs are used in different tenses, how sentences are structured, and how punctuation helps make sense of the meaning. It's a great way to reinforce what you've learned, and it helps your brain see the language in context. When I started, I didn't jump into reading long novels. I began with something simpler, like children's books or short stories. These books use simpler language and are easier to understand. If you're a beginner, I suggest starting with books that are made for English learners. There are many books designed specifically for different levels, and they can help you build your confidence in reading. Once I got more comfortable with simple books, I started reading articles online, short blogs, and even social media posts in English. I would read a paragraph and try to understand the main idea first. Don't worry about understanding every single word. In fact, it's better to focus on the overall meaning. If there's a word you don't know, it's okay. Just keep going, and later you can look up the word to improve your vocabulary. Don't let unknown words stop you from enjoying reading. Over time, you'll encounter those words again, and they'll stick with you. One of the things that really helped me was reading aloud. At first, I was shy about speaking English, but reading aloud gave me the confidence to practice pronunciation. It also helped me get used to speaking in English, even when no one was around to listen. When you read aloud, you're not only practicing reading but also speaking, which is great for improving your pronunciation. I would try to read with the correct intonation and rhythm, just like how native speakers would. It made me feel more confident when I eventually started speaking English in conversations. Another great way to practice reading is by using online resources. The internet has a wealth of material available, from news articles to blogs to short stories. I personally started by reading things that interested me. I love science, so I read articles about new discoveries. I also read about culture, music, and travel. The key is to choose topics that you enjoy. When you read things that interest you, it doesn't feel like studying. Instead, it becomes a fun way to learn new words and phrases. And if you don't understand everything, that's okay. The most important thing is that you're practicing. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but I don't have time to read. Well, let me tell you, you don't need to read for hours every day. Even reading for just 10 to 15 minutes a day can make a huge difference. You can fit it into your routine, maybe during your lunch break while you're commuting or before bed. Start small, but be consistent. If you read a little every day, you'll start noticing improvements. And remember, it doesn't always have to be a book. It can be anything: articles, blog posts, or even social media posts in English. Every bit of reading counts. Let's talk about building your vocabulary through reading. This is one of the most powerful ways to learn new words. As you read, you'll naturally come across new words. Whenever I encountered a word I didn't know, I would pause and look it up. If I thought it was important, I would write it down in a notebook and try to use it in a sentence. You don't need to memorize every word you encounter, but picking up a few new words every day will add up over time. Another tip is to read in context. When you come across a new word, try to understand its meaning based on the context of the sentence or paragraph. This will help you remember the word more effectively because you'll know how it fits into the sentence. For example, if the word is elated and the sentence says, "She was elated after hearing the good news," you can guess that elated means happy or excited. Understanding the meaning through context makes it easier to remember the word. One of my favorite things about reading is that it helps me understand how English is used in real life. When you read novels or articles, you see how people use slang, idioms, and informal language. These are things that textbooks don't always teach, but they are a huge part of daily conversations. For instance, when I read stories, I learned common phrases like "what's up" or "how's it going?" These are phrases that native speakers use all the time, and by reading, I was able to learn them naturally. If you're feeling a bit lost in your reading journey, don't worry. You don't have to read long chapters all at once. It's okay to start small. Break it down. Maybe today you'll read one page or one short article. The next day, try to read a little more. But don't put pressure on yourself to finish an entire book in one sitting. Take it one step at a time, and you'll start feeling more comfortable. It's also important to track your progress. Keep a reading journal where you write down the books you've read, new words you've learned, and your thoughts about the material. This can help you stay motivated and see how much you've improved over time. Whenever I felt like I wasn't making progress, I would look back at my journal and realize just how much I had learned. Lastly, remember that reading is supposed to be fun. Don't think of it as a chore or something you have to do. Choose books, articles, or blogs that you enjoy. If you enjoy the material, you'll look forward to reading more and more. When reading becomes fun, learning becomes a lot easier. To summarize, reading is a powerful tool for improving your English. It helps you expand your vocabulary, learn grammar and context, and understand how native speakers use the language in real life. Start with something simple, read every day, and enjoy the process. Over time, your reading skills will improve, and you'll notice a huge difference in how comfortable you feel using English. Remember, reading isn't just about finishing a book or article. It's about learning and enjoying the journey. So pick up that book, find an article online, or even read your favorite social media post in English, and take the first step in improving your English today. Chapter 5. Building Vocabulary. Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Chapter 5. In this chapter, we're going to dive into something that is essential for your language learning journey: building your vocabulary. If you want to speak, write, and understand English better, you need a strong vocabulary. The more words you know, the easier it will be to express yourself clearly, understand others, and enjoy the process of learning. But how do you go about building vocabulary? That's exactly what we're going to explore today. When I first started learning English, I didn't know many words. At the beginning, it felt overwhelming because there was so much to learn. I remember walking into a bookstore and seeing the vast number of books written in English, and I thought, how will I ever learn all these words? But over time, I realized that vocabulary building doesn't happen all at once. It happens gradually, step by step, and there are ways to make it easier and more enjoyable. So let's talk about how you can build your vocabulary effectively. Start with the basics. Learn common words. One of the best places to start is with the most common words in the English language. These are the words that are used in everyday conversations and written communication. If you learn the basic words first, you'll be able to understand the majority of what people are saying and writing. For example, words like hello, goodbye, please, thank you, book, food, home, and friend are essential building blocks of the language. When I began learning English, I started by memorizing a few of these common words each day. And it really made a difference. By focusing on learning the words that are used most often, I could begin having basic conversations right away. It gave me the confidence to keep going. So, start with simple, high-frequency words and gradually build from there. Learn words related to your daily life. Once you've mastered the basic words, the next step is to focus on words related to your daily life. For example, if you work in an office, learn words related to your job like computer, meeting, email, and project. If you're a student, learn words related to school like homework, exam, class, and teacher. If you love cooking, learn food-related words. Learning vocabulary that connects to your personal experiences will help you remember the words more easily because they're meaningful to you. I did this by keeping a vocabulary journal. Each day, I wrote down new words I learned, especially ones that I knew would be useful in my daily routine. If I learned a new word while reading an article, or if someone used a word in conversation that I didn't know, I'd write it down and look up its meaning. I also made a habit of reviewing these words every week. This helped me reinforce my memory. Use context to learn words. One of the best ways to learn new words is through context. When you read a book, watch a movie, or listen to a podcast, try to learn new words by understanding the overall meaning of the sentence or paragraph. Instead of focusing on every word you don't know, try to guess the meaning based on the surrounding words and the context of the conversation. For example, let's say you're reading a sentence like this. The rain was torrential and the streets were flooded with water. If you don't know the word torrential, you might be able to guess its meaning because of the words around it. You might think, it must mean something related to heavy rain because it's describing the weather and flooding. Once you have an idea, look up the word to confirm your guess. This method helps you learn vocabulary in a more natural way, without having to memorize every single word separately. Practice using new words in sentences. Learning a new word is great, but the real key to retaining it is using it. Practice using new words in sentences as soon as you can. This could mean writing them down, speaking them out loud, or even using them in conversations with others. The more you use the word, the better you'll remember it. For example, if you learn the word elated, don't just memorize its meaning, very happy or joyful. Try using it in a sentence like, I felt elated when I passed. My exam. The more you use new vocabulary in your daily life, the more it will stick. When I started learning, I would write short paragraphs or even just a few sentences each day using new words I had learned. I didn't worry about whether they were perfect. The goal was to practice and get comfortable using those words in real-life situations. And over time, I noticed that the words became more natural to me. Use flashcards for quick review. If you're looking for a fun and effective way to memorize vocabulary, flashcards are an excellent tool. Write the new word on one side of the card and its meaning or an example sentence on the other side. Carry them around with you, and whenever you have a few minutes, review them. The repetition will help you commit the words to memory. I found flashcards especially helpful when I was learning words for specific topics. For example, I made a set of flashcards for business vocabulary, like contract, negotiation, profit, and revenue. I carried them with me during my commute or while waiting in line, so I could practice whenever I had a free moment. You can also use digital flashcard apps like Anki or Quizlet, which allow you to make your own flashcards and test yourself. They even use spaced repetition algorithms to help you review words at the perfect time for better retention. Group words by categories. Another way to improve your vocabulary is by learning words in categories. For example, you could group words into categories like food, animals, clothing, emotions, or sports. Learning words in groups helps you remember them better because you associate them with a specific theme or idea. For example, if you're learning words related to food, you might group them into fruits, vegetables, meat, spices, and so on. When you see or use one word in the category, it can trigger memories of other words in the same group. Read and listen to different types of content. To expand your vocabulary even further, expose yourself to different kinds of content in English. Read books, listen to podcasts, watch movies, and explore news articles. Each type of content will introduce you to different words and phrases that are used in specific contexts. For example, listening to podcasts about business will introduce you to professional jargon, while reading novels will expose you to conversational language, slang, and literary terms. By regularly engaging with a variety of materials, you'll learn a more diverse range of vocabulary and become comfortable with how words are used in different contexts. As you encounter new words, add them to your vocabulary journal or flashcards and try to use them in your daily conversations. Set a goal for new words. Each day. One of the most effective ways to keep yourself motivated and stay on track with your vocabulary building is by setting a daily goal. For example, aim to learn 5 new words each day. It's a manageable goal and it adds up quickly. In just a month, you'll have learned 150 new words. When I started, I aimed to learn 5 new words a day, and by the end of the week, I had learned 35 new words. That small goal was achievable, and it kept me motivated. You can also challenge yourself by learning new words in a specific category or theme, like nature or travel. 9. Review regularly. Finally, make sure to review your vocabulary regularly. If you learn a word today, you won't remember it forever unless you keep revisiting it. I recommend reviewing your vocabulary every week. Go over your flashcards or vocabulary journal and practice speaking the words aloud. Try to recall their meanings and use them in sentences. The more you review, the stronger your vocabulary will become. To sum up, building vocabulary is a gradual process, but it doesn't have to be difficult. Start with the basics. Learn words related to your life. Practice using them in sentences, and expose yourself to as much English as possible. Use flashcards, categorize words, set daily goals, and review regularly. The key is to stay consistent and enjoy the process. Over time, you'll see that your vocabulary grows, and with it, your confidence in using English. Remember, every new word you learn is a step forward on your language learning journey. Keep building your vocabulary, and you'll see amazing progress. You've got this. Chapter 6: Speaking with Confidence. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chapter 6. In this chapter, we'll be talking about something that many English learners struggle with: speaking with confidence. I know from my own experience that speaking can be one of the hardest parts of learning a new language. It's easy to feel nervous, afraid of making mistakes, or worried that people won't understand you. But today, I'm going to share some tips that helped me build my confidence in speaking English, and I believe they can help you too. Let's start with a story. When I first began learning English, I was terrified to speak. Even though I had been studying grammar and vocabulary, when it came to speaking, I felt like I couldn't do it. I was afraid of making mistakes, of sounding silly, or of not being understood. I remember being in class and hearing other students speak so fluently, while I was afraid to even say a single sentence. But I quickly realized that the only way to get better at speaking is to actually speak. The more I hesitated, the harder it became. So I decided to push through that fear. Start small. Speak in low-stress situations. One of the first things I did to build my speaking confidence was to start small. I didn't jump into big conversations with strangers right away. Instead, I began by speaking in situations where the pressure was lower. For example, I would talk to myself in English. Yes, it sounds a bit funny, but talking to yourself is a great way to practice without the fear of judgment. I would ask myself questions like, "What did I have for lunch today?" Or, "What's my favorite movie?" And then answer myself in English. The key here is to get used to hearing your own voice speaking English. Speaking to yourself can also help you practice thinking in English. At first, I would translate everything from my native language into English, but over time I started to think directly in English, which made speaking much easier. The more you practice speaking out loud, the more comfortable you'll feel with the language. So don't be afraid to have a conversation with yourself. It's a great starting point. Practice with friends or language partners. Another way to gain confidence is to practice with friends or language partners. If you have friends who speak English, ask them if they'd be willing to have regular conversations with you. If you don't know anyone who speaks English, you can find language partners online through language exchange apps or websites. When I started, I found a language exchange partner, and we would have casual conversations once a week. I didn't worry about being perfect. The goal was just to practice speaking. I made mistakes, of course, but each time I learned something new. Over time, I became more comfortable speaking with others, and my confidence grew. If you don't have a language partner, don't be afraid to practice with strangers. Many people are patient and understanding, especially when they know you're learning. One tip I learned is to make it a regular habit to speak in English. The more you practice, the more natural it will feel. Don't wait for the perfect moment to speak. Just do it. Even if you make mistakes, it's okay. The more you speak, the more fluent and confident you'll become. Don't worry about making mistakes. Let's talk about something that holds many learners back: the fear of making mistakes. I've been there, and I know how intimidating it can be to speak when you're afraid of saying something wrong. But here's the truth. Making mistakes is a natural part of the learning process. If you're not making mistakes, then you're probably not challenging yourself enough. Mistakes show that you're pushing yourself to improve. When I started speaking, I was terrified that people would laugh at my mistakes. But the more I spoke, the more I realized that most people are very supportive. In fact, they appreciate the effort it takes to speak in a second language. They understand that it's not easy, and they're happy that you're trying. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. I want to remind you, no one speaks perfectly all the time, not even native speakers. The important thing is to keep speaking and improving. Every time you make a mistake, see it as a learning opportunity. When I made a mistake, I would listen carefully to the correction, and next time, I would try to use the word or phrase correctly. It's all about practice and learning from your mistakes. Mistakes don't mean failure, they mean progress. 4. Focus on fluency, not perfection. Another thing that really helped me was shifting my focus from perfection to fluency. It's easy to get caught up in trying to say everything perfectly, but that can actually slow you down. I learned that the most important thing is to focus on speaking clearly and with confidence, even if it's not perfect. It's okay to speak slowly. It's okay to pause and think for a moment. What matters is that you're communicating. For example, when I first started speaking English, I would get caught up in trying to remember the perfect word for every situation. But I realized that even if I didn't know a specific word, I could still explain my point using simpler words or phrases. It's more important to keep the conversation going than to worry about finding the perfect word every time. Fluency comes from practicing regularly and staying focused on communication, not perfection. Slow down and take your time. When we're nervous, we tend to speak quickly, but speaking too fast can lead to mistakes and make it harder for others to understand. I found that speaking slowly helped me feel more in control. When I slowed down, I could think more clearly about what I wanted to say. I didn't rush through my sentences, and that helped me make fewer mistakes. Slowing down also allows you to focus on pronunciation. If you speak too quickly, it's easy to blend words together and not pronounce them clearly. By speaking slowly, you give yourself time to pronounce each word more clearly, which will make you sound more confident and easier to understand. Use body language to enhance your communication. Another tip that helped me with my speaking confidence was using body language. When you speak, your body language plays an important role in communication. Even if your words aren't perfect, using gestures, facial expressions, and eye contact can help convey your message more clearly. For example, when I was unsure about the words I was using, I would gesture to emphasize my point, or use my hands to explain something. This not only made me feel more confident, but it also helped others understand me better. So, don't forget that your body can help you communicate. Use it to support your words, and it will make speaking feel more natural. Practice in real life. Situations. The best way to get better at speaking is by practicing in real-life situations. Don't wait for the perfect time to practice. Use every opportunity you get to speak English. Whether you're ordering food at a restaurant, asking for directions, or chatting with a friend, every time you speak, you're building confidence. Started looking for everyday situations where I could practice English. I would go to places where I knew I'd have to speak in English, like a coffee shop or a store. At first, it was uncomfortable, but the more I did it, the easier it became. The key is to practice in real situations, not just in class or with friends. The more real-world practice you get, the more confident you'll feel in everyday conversations. Stay positive and be patient. Finally, remember that building speaking confidence takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. There will be moments when you feel unsure, and that's completely normal. I want to encourage you to stay positive and patient with yourself. Every time you speak, you're making progress. Even if it feels like you're not improving as quickly as you'd like, remember that every step counts. Celebrate the small victories. Maybe you spoke in English for the first time in a store, or you had a conversation with a friend. These are huge achievements. Over time, these small moments will add up, and before you know it, you'll be speaking with confidence, without even thinking about it. So, to summarize, here are the keys to speaking with confidence. Start small and practice. In low-pressure situations. Practice with friends or language partners. Embrace mistakes as part of the learning process. Focus on fluency, not perfection. Slow down and take your time. Use body language to support your speaking. Practice in real-life situations to build confidence. Stay positive and be patient with yourself. Remember, speaking English is a skill that gets better the more you use it. Don't be afraid to make mistakes and always keep practicing. The more you speak, the more confident you will become. So go ahead. Take that first step, speak with confidence, and enjoy the process. Chapter 7. Writing to Express Yourself. Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Chapter 7. In this chapter, we're going to talk about something that can sometimes be overlooked in language learning: writing. I know many people focus on speaking, listening, and reading, but writing is just as important. It's not only a way to communicate, but it's also a powerful tool for improving your language skills. Writing helps you organize your thoughts, practice grammar, and expand your vocabulary. It also gives you a chance to reflect on what you've learned and express yourself more clearly. When I first started learning English, writing was one of the areas that I struggled with the most. I knew the words, I understood the grammar, but when it came to writing sentences, I felt stuck. I wasn't sure how to put my ideas into words, and I often found myself second-guessing my writing. But over time, I learned that writing is a skill, just like speaking or listening, and it gets better with practice. Start simple. Write short sentences. If you're just starting with writing, don't worry about writing long essays or complex paragraphs right away. The key is to start simple. I began by writing short, simple sentences every day. I would describe my day, write about my hobbies, or even just jot down random thoughts in English. The goal wasn't to be perfect. It was just to practice writing in English and getting comfortable with the process. For example, I started with sentences like, I went to the park today, or my favorite food is pizza. They were simple, but they were a great starting point. Over time, I added more details to my sentences. Instead of just writing, "I went to the park," I would write, "I went to the park today with my friends, and we played soccer." By adding a bit more detail each time, I could gradually improve my writing without feeling overwhelmed. Keep a daily journal. One of the best ways to improve your writing is by keeping a daily journal. This is something I started doing early on, and it helped me immensely. Each day, I would write a few sentences about my day, what I did, how I felt, and anything interesting that happened. Writing in a journal is a great way to practice because you're writing about things that are meaningful to you, which makes it more enjoyable and easier to do consistently. At first, my journal entries were short and simple, but as I continued, I started writing more complex sentences. I would reflect on my emotions, describe things in more detail, and even write about my goals for the future. Keeping a journal helped me develop my writing habit, and over time, it became easier to express myself clearly in English. Don't worry about perfection. One of the biggest hurdles I faced in writing was the fear of making mistakes. I was afraid that my grammar wouldn't be perfect, or that I would use the wrong word. But I quickly learned that writing is a process, and it's okay to make mistakes. In fact, making mistakes is one of the best ways to learn. When you make a mistake, you get the opportunity to correct it and improve your skills. I stopped worrying about making every sentence perfect. Instead, I focused on expressing my ideas clearly. I told myself, it's okay if it's not perfect, as long as I'm communicating my thoughts. This mindset helped me become more confident in my writing. When you stop focusing on perfection, you'll find that writing becomes more enjoyable and less stressful. Practice writing paragraphs. Once you feel comfortable writing simple sentences, try writing full paragraphs. This was a huge step for me in improving my writing skills. Writing paragraphs allowed me to organize my thoughts and connect ideas. It also helped me practice using different sentence structures and expanding my vocabulary. To begin, I would write short paragraphs on topics I was interested in. For example, I would write about a recent trip, a movie I watched, or something I was passionate about. I didn't worry about how long the paragraph was, but I made sure it had a clear beginning, middle, and end. As I practiced, my paragraphs became longer and more detailed. I also started paying more attention to things, like punctuation and sentence structure, which helped my writing sound more natural. 5. Read your writing aloud. Once I finished writing a paragraph, I would read it aloud. This is a trick that really helped me improve my writing. When you read your writing out loud, you can hear if it flows naturally or if something sounds off. If I read a sentence and it didn't sound right, I would go back and adjust it until it felt more natural. Reading your writing aloud also helps you practice your pronunciation and rhythm, which is important for speaking as well. If something feels difficult to say, it may be a sign that the sentence is too complicated or awkward. Simplify it and try again. Use writing prompts. If you're not sure what to write about, writing prompts can be a great way to get started. A writing prompt is a question or statement that gives you a topic to write about. For example, a prompt could be, describe your favorite holiday, or write about your dream job. These prompts give you a starting point and can help you get your ideas flowing. I used writing prompts when I didn't know what to write about. Sometimes I would look up prompts online or even ask friends for ideas. Writing prompts are a fun way to stretch your imagination and practice your writing skills on a variety of topics. Focus on vocabulary and grammar. While writing, it's important to focus on using the right vocabulary and grammar. This doesn't mean you have to be perfect, but try to incorporate new words and phrases that you've learned into your writing. If you've learned a new word, try to use it in a sentence or two. This helps reinforce the word and makes it easier to remember. At the same time, pay attention to grammar. I know grammar can be tricky, but practicing it through writing helps it become more natural over time. I would check my writing for common mistakes, like subject-verb agreement or punctuation errors, and correct them. As you write more, you'll get better at spotting and fixing your mistakes. Revise and edit your work. After you've written a piece, don't forget to revise and edit it. When I first started writing, I would write a paragraph and consider it done, but I quickly learned that revision is an important part of the writing process. Once I finished writing, I would go back and read it again, looking for areas where I could improve. Sometimes I would change a word to make it clearer or fix a sentence that sounded awkward. Editing is where you can make your writing more polished and professional. If possible, ask a teacher, tutor, or friend to review your writing. Getting feedback from others is incredibly helpful because they can spot mistakes you might have missed and offer suggestions for improvement. Write for different purposes. As you progress in your writing, try writing for different purposes. For example, you can write emails, social media posts, essays, or even creative stories. Writing in different contexts helps you develop versatility in your writing. It also exposes you to various types of vocabulary and language structures. I started writing short essays on topics I was passionate about, like technology or travel. These essays challenged me to organize my thoughts clearly and use more advanced vocabulary. Over time, I became more comfortable with writing longer, more structured pieces, which helped me feel more confident in my writing ability. 1. Stay consistent. Finally, the most important thing I can tell you is to stay consistent. Writing is a skill that improves the more you practice. I set a goal to write at least a paragraph every day, and it really paid off. The more I wrote, the more my skills improved. Don't worry if you don't see instant results. Just like any other skill, writing takes time and patience. But the more you write, the easier and more natural it will feel. So, let's review what we've learned today. Start with simple sentences and work your way up to paragraphs. Keep a daily journal to practice consistently. Don't worry about perfection. Focus on expressing yourself. Read your writing aloud to make sure it sounds natural. Use writing prompts to spark your creativity. Focus on vocabulary and grammar while writing. Revise and edit your work for improvement. Write for different purposes to expand your skills. Stay consistent and practice every day. Remember, writing is an incredibly powerful tool for improving your English. It helps you solidify your vocabulary, practice grammar, and most importantly, express yourself. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, and keep challenging yourself. With practice, your writing will become stronger, and you'll gain confidence in your ability to communicate in English. Chapter 8. Overcoming Self-Doubt. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chapter 8. In this chapter, we're going to address something that many language learners face at some point during their journey: self-doubt. I'm sure you've felt it before. The feeling that you're not good enough, the fear that you're not improving fast enough, or the belief that others are better than you. Trust me, I've been there too. In fact, when I first started learning English, self-doubt was one of my biggest obstacles. But I want to tell you that self-doubt doesn't have to stop you. It's a natural part of learning, and the important thing is how you deal with it. Let's talk about how to overcome this feeling and keep moving forward. Acknowledge your doubts, but don't let them control you. The first step to overcoming self-doubt is acknowledging it. It's okay to feel doubtful sometimes. I'm sure we all have moments when we wonder, am I really improving? Am I ever going to be fluent? Why does everyone else seem to learn faster than me? These thoughts are completely normal. The key is not to ignore them, but to recognize them for what they are: temporary feelings that don't define your ability or your progress. When I was learning English, I had days when I felt like I wasn't getting any better. I would hear, native speakers speaking so easily, and I would get frustrated with myself. But I started to realize that these feelings of doubt were part of the learning process. They didn't mean that I was failing. They simply meant I was challenging myself. And challenges always bring up doubts. Once I accepted that, I stopped letting my doubts control me. You don't have to ignore your doubts. Instead, tell yourself, it's okay to feel this way, but I won't let this feeling stop me from moving forward. Recognizing self-doubt allows you to take action and move past it. Focus on your progress, not perfection. One of the things that contributed to my self-doubt was comparing myself to others. It's easy to look around and think that everyone else is learning faster or doing better than you. But here's the thing. Comparison is the thief of joy. Everyone learns at their own pace, and comparing yourself to others will only make you feel worse. When I was struggling with English, I started to focus more on my progress, not perfection. Instead of looking at where I wanted to be, I began to appreciate how far I had come. Maybe I couldn't speak fluently yet, but I could understand more words. Maybe I couldn't write long essays yet, but I was getting better at forming sentences. I kept track of these small victories. I started a journal where I wrote down the things I was proud of, like learning a new word or completing a lesson. By focusing on my progress, I was able to silence the voice of self-doubt and celebrate my achievements. If you're struggling with self-doubt, I encourage you to take a moment to reflect on how much you've already learned. Think about where you were when you started and compare it to where you are now. You'll see that you've made progress. Maybe not as fast as you wanted, but progress nonetheless. Celebrate those moments, no matter how small they seem. Progress is progress, and it's something to be proud of. Embrace the process, not just the outcome. Another way to overcome self-doubt is to embrace the process of learning, not just the end result. We often get so focused on the goal, becoming fluent in English, that we forget to enjoy the journey. It's easy to get discouraged when we focus only on the destination. I used to think, I'll be happy when I can speak fluently, but the truth is, I found happiness in the small victories, in the daily progress, and in the joy of learning something new. Learning English is a journey, and the process itself is valuable. Instead of fixating on when you'll be fluent, try to appreciate the steps along the way. Celebrate every new word you learn, every sentence you form, and every conversation you have. It's the process that builds your skills, and embracing it will help you feel less overwhelmed by self-doubt. 4. Understand that mistakes are part of learning. One of the biggest causes of self-doubt is the fear of making mistakes. I used to be terrified of speaking English because I was afraid of making mistakes. I thought that if I made a mistake, I would look foolish or people would judge me. But over time, I learned that mistakes are an essential part of the learning process. In fact, they are one of the best ways to learn. When I made a mistake, I started to view it as an opportunity to grow rather than something to be ashamed of. Each time I made a mistake, I learned something new. Whether it was the correct pronunciation of a word, the right grammar structure, or how to express my thoughts more clearly. Mistakes don't make you a failure. They make you a learner. So, when you make a mistake, don't be hard on yourself. Instead, use it as a stepping stone to get better. Remember, everyone makes mistakes, even native speakers. And the more mistakes you make, the more you'll learn. So don't let the fear of mistakes hold you back. Embrace them as part of your learning journey. Set realistic goals and celebrate your achievements. Self-doubt often arises when we set unrealistic expectations for ourselves. We want to learn everything quickly, and when we don't reach those goals, we feel discouraged. That's why it's important to set realistic, achievable goals that you can measure. For example, instead of saying, "I want to be fluent in English in 6 months," try setting goals like, "I want to learn 50 new words this month," or "I want to have a 10-minute conversation in English this week." When I set small, achievable goals, I felt a sense of accomplishment every time I met them. These small wins helped build my confidence and kept me motivated. Instead of focusing on how far I had to go, I celebrated how much I had already achieved. And that helped me push through the self-doubt and continue working toward bigger goals. Remember, small steps lead to big results. Don't expect to achieve everything at once. Set realistic goals, work toward them, and celebrate every achievement along the way. Surround yourself with supportive people. Another powerful way to overcome self-doubt is to surround yourself with supportive people. Positive, encouraging. People can make all the difference when you're feeling down. When I was learning English, I sought out people who were understanding and encouraging. Whether it was friends, family, teachers, or language partners, their support gave me the strength to keep going. Find people who believe in you and your ability to succeed. Share your goals and progress with them, and let them cheer you on. You don't have to do this alone. Surround yourself with a community that supports your growth. Their encouragement can help you silence the voice of self-doubt and remind you of your strengths. Practice self-compassion. Finally, one of the most important things I learned in my journey is to practice self-compassion. It's easy to be hard on yourself when things aren't going as planned. But being kind to yourself is crucial. You're learning, and learning takes time. You wouldn't be so harsh with a friend who was learning something new, so why be harsh with yourself? When I felt self-doubt creeping in, I started to practice speaking to myself the way I would speak to a friend. I reminded myself that learning takes time, and it's okay to not have everything figured out right away. I started to treat myself with more patience and understanding. That change in mindset helped me push through my doubts and continue growing. 2. Sum up. Acknowledge your doubts, but don't let them control you. Focus on your progress, not perfection. Embrace the learning process. Celebrate the journey. View mistakes as opportunities to learn and grow. Set realistic goals and celebrate your achievements along the way. Surround yourself with supportive people who believe in you. Practice self-compassion. Be kind to yourself. Overcoming self-doubt is a journey in itself. It's about learning to trust in your abilities, celebrating your progress, and staying patient with yourself. Remember, everyone has doubts, but those doubts don't define your potential. Keep moving forward, and with time, you'll look back and see just how far you've come. Chapter 9. Using different resources. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Chapter 9. In this chapter, we're going to explore one of the most important and exciting parts of learning a new language, using different resources. When I first started learning English, I relied mostly on textbooks, but I quickly realized that there's so much more to language learning than just textbooks. The world is full of resources, and the more diverse your resources are, the better and faster you'll learn. So in this chapter, I'm going to share with you how you can use a variety of resources to improve your English in ways that are not only effective, but also fun. Diversifying your learning materials. When I first began learning English, I would spend hours studying grammar rules and vocabulary from textbooks. And while textbooks are a great foundation, I soon realized that language learning isn't just about memorizing rules. It's about immersing yourself in the language. One of the first things I did was start using real-world materials, things that native speakers use every day. This made my learning more practical and relevant. I began listening to English podcasts, watching TV shows and movies in English, reading articles and blogs online, and even reading social media posts. Using materials like these allowed me to hear how native speakers use language in context, how they speak, how they structure sentences, and how they express ideas. For example, I loved listening to podcasts about topics that interested me, whether it was technology, travel, or even pop culture. I would listen to them while I was commuting, cooking, or working out. These podcasts weren't just helping me improve my listening skills. They were also helping me learn new vocabulary and expressions that I could use in everyday conversations. Using online learning platforms and apps. Another great way to access diverse resources is through online learning platforms and apps. These have become incredibly popular and are a fantastic way to practice different skills, whether it's speaking, listening, reading, or writing. When I first started using apps like Duolingo, Babbel, and Memrise, I noticed how much they helped me reinforce my vocabulary and grammar. These apps are designed in a way that makes learning feel like a game, with points, rewards, and levels. I liked how I could practice a little bit every day, even if I only had 10 or 15 minutes. Over time, I built a habit, and before I knew it, I had improved significantly. But it's not just about language learning apps. There are also apps for listening practice, like Spotify, where you can listen to English podcasts or audiobooks on the go. I would listen to books or shows, and if I didn't understand something, I would pause and look up the word. These tools helped me improve my listening comprehension and vocabulary in a more relaxed, enjoyable way. Watching movies and TV shows in English. Let's talk about something that I absolutely loved doing when learning English: watching movies and TV shows. This is one of the most enjoyable and natural ways to improve your language skills. When I started watching my favorite movies in English, I was surprised at how much it helped me. Not only did it improve my listening skills, but I also learned slang, idiomatic expressions, and how English sounds in real-life conversations. The first time I watched a movie in English without subtitles was difficult, but it pushed me to pay closer attention to how the actors were speaking, how they stressed certain words, and how they interacted with each other. It helped me understand real, conversational English, the kind of English that's used every day in informal settings. One tip I would suggest is to start with subtitles in your native language, or in English if you're feeling more confident. This helps you understand the plot while also getting used to the flow of the language. Eventually, try watching without subtitles to challenge yourself. It's okay if you don't understand everything at first. Just keep watching and listening, and over time your listening skills will improve. 4. Reading books, blogs, and articles. Reading is another excellent resource, and it can be both fun and educational. When I first started reading in English, I began with simpler books, such as children's books or short stories, which were easier to understand. These books helped me learn new words, understand grammar and context, and build my reading fluency. As I grew more comfortable, I moved on to novels, news articles, and blogs. I started reading topics I enjoyed, such as technology, sports, and travel. This made reading more enjoyable and less like a chore. I would highlight new words and expressions, then look them up to see how they were used in context. I would even try to use these words in my own writing and speaking. Reading blogs and online articles also exposed me to modern conversational language, especially in the case of blogs. These are often written in a more informal tone, and I got to see how native speakers express ideas and opinions in writing. I started following blogs about things I loved, and this turned reading into something exciting rather than a task I had to complete. Joining online communities and language exchange platforms, one resource that I found incredibly useful when I was learning English was joining online communities and language exchange platforms. There are many websites and apps like Tandem, HelloTalk, or Conversation Exchange, where you can practice speaking with people from around the world. These platforms gave me the opportunity to speak with native speakers and other learners, which helped me build my speaking confidence. I would have conversations with people about various topics, everything from travel to hobbies to current events. Not only did this help me practice speaking, but it also gave me insight into how people use English in different parts of the world. Being part of a community made me feel less alone in my learning process. I could share my progress, ask for advice, and get encouragement from others who were also learning. The best part was being able to practice with real people, not just apps or textbooks. This real-world practice is invaluable, and it helped me improve my conversational skills in ways that no textbook ever could. Listening to music and songs. Listening to music is one of the most fun and engaging ways to improve your English. I loved listening to my favorite songs in English, and over time, I realized how much it was helping me improve my vocabulary, listening comprehension, and pronunciation. Music is a natural way to learn the rhythm of the language and to get used to the flow of English sentences. I would listen to songs and try to follow along with the lyrics. If I didn't understand a word, I would look it up. Sometimes I would write down the lyrics, check for any unfamiliar phrases, and then practice singing along. This not only helped me learn new words, but also improved my pronunciation. Plus, it made learning feel less like a task and more like an enjoyable activity. Using YouTube and educational videos. Another great resource that helped me improve my English was YouTube. There are countless channels dedicated to language learning. Grammar tips, vocabulary building, and even cultural insights. I would watch videos about topics I was interested in, whether it was science, history, or language tips, and listen to how native speakers explain things. YouTube also allowed me to practice listening to different accents, as there are speakers from all over the world sharing their knowledge. This helped me get used to hearing English in various accents and tones, which made me feel more comfortable understanding English in real-world situations. Practice with games and interactive tools. Sometimes traditional methods can feel a bit overwhelming, so I would also use language learning games and interactive tools. These tools are fun and engaging, making the process of learning feel like a game. Websites like Quizlet or language learning games on apps provide vocabulary and grammar practice in an enjoyable and interactive way. I found these tools especially helpful when it came to reviewing vocabulary or practicing spelling. Using games allowed me to reinforce what I had learned without feeling like I was studying. And because I was playing a game, I didn't feel stressed. It was a great way to build confidence and have fun while learning. To sum up, diversify your learning materials. Use podcasts, TV shows, movies, and articles to improve your language skills. Use online learning platforms and apps to reinforce vocabulary and grammar. Watch movies and TV shows to practice real-world English and pick up conversational language. Read books. Read blogs and articles to build your vocabulary and understand grammar in context. Join online communities and language exchange platforms for real-world practice and support. Listen to music to improve your pronunciation and rhythm of speech. Use YouTube and educational videos to learn in an interactive and visual way. Practice with games and interactive tools to reinforce what you've learned in a fun and engaging way. Remember, the more diverse your resources, the more you'll enjoy the learning process and the faster you'll improve. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to language learning, so experiment with different tools and find what works best for you. The world is full of resources, and the more you use them, the more confident and fluent you'll become in English. Chapter 10. Never Stop Practicing. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final chapter, Chapter 10. In this chapter, we're going to discuss the most important principle of all in language learning: never stop practicing. You've made it this far, and that's a huge accomplishment. But as you know, language learning is not a sprint, it's a marathon. The key to long-term success in learning English, or any language for that matter, is consistent practice. Whether you're just starting out or have been learning for years, the principle remains the same. Practice makes progress, and progress is the key to success. I want to tell you a little story about my own journey. When I first started learning English, there were moments when I felt stuck. It was easy to get frustrated when things didn't seem to be moving as quickly as I wanted. Sometimes I felt like I wasn't improving at all, and I thought about giving up. But what kept me going was remembering that language learning is a continuous process. The more I practiced, the better I became, and eventually, I realized that consistent practice, no matter how small, was the key to my success. So, let's dive into how you can never stop practicing and keep improving your English every single day. Build a daily practice routine. The first step to never stopping your practice is to build a daily routine. This doesn't mean you have to study for hours every day. In fact, you don't need to spend a lot of time at all. What's important is that you make it a habit, a part of your daily life. Even just 15 minutes of practice a day can make a huge difference over time. When I first started, I would set aside just 10-15 minutes every morning to practice my English. Some days I would focus on vocabulary. Other days I would practice listening. And sometimes I would just speak to myself or write in my journal. The important thing was that I showed up every day. Some days it felt hard. But as I built that habit, it became easier and more enjoyable. Here's a tip. Create a schedule that works for you. Whether it's early in the morning, during lunch, or right before bed, find a time each day that you can dedicate to learning. Consistency is key. If you can, try to practice every day, even if it's just for a short amount of time. And remember, don't be too hard on yourself if you miss a day. The goal is to make it a habit, and one missed day won't stop you from progressing. Focus on small, achievable goals. Another important factor in never stopping your practice is setting small, achievable goals. It's easy to get overwhelmed. When we think about the big picture, becoming fluent in English, speaking like a native, or reading a whole book in English, these are great goals, but they can also feel distant and difficult to reach. That's why it's important to break them down into smaller, more manageable goals. For example, one of my goals early on was to learn 5 new words a day. This was something I could easily achieve, and it made me feel accomplished. Eventually, I set goals like having a 10-minute conversation in English, reading a short article without a dictionary, or writing a paragraph in English every day. These small wins kept me motivated and gave me a sense of progress. By focusing on small, bite-sized goals, you'll find that you're achieving things every day. And when you achieve something, no matter how small, it will fuel your motivation to keep going. Practice in different contexts. To truly never stop practicing, you need to practice in different contexts. It's easy to fall into a routine of doing the same thing every day, reading, writing, or listening. But to improve your skills and become more confident, you need to use English in a variety of situations. For example, practice speaking English with your friends, at work, or even while shopping. Try to incorporate English into your daily life, no matter where you are or what you're doing. For instance, you can practice thinking in English while doing daily tasks, like cooking, cleaning, or walking. You don't have to speak out loud, but challenge yourself to think in English instead of your native language. You can also change your environment to make it more immersive. Surround yourself with English by watching TV shows, listening to podcasts, reading the news, or following English-speaking social media accounts. The more you expose yourself to English in different contexts, the more natural it will feel to use it in real-life situations. 4. Keep pushing yourself to use new words and phrases. One thing that helped me improve my English was making sure I always pushed myself to use new words. It's one thing to learn new vocabulary, but it's another thing to actively use it. When I learned a new word, I would try to use it in a sentence or in conversation as soon as possible. Sometimes I would feel a bit nervous, but the more I used the word, the more confident I became. The key is practice in context. For example, if you're learning words related to travel, try using them when talking about a recent trip or when planning a future one. If you're learning words related to food, try ordering in English at a restaurant or describing your favorite dishes. The more you use the vocabulary, the more natural it will feel. Don't be afraid to challenge yourself. Never stop practicing by challenging yourself to go beyond your comfort zone. When I was learning, I would occasionally push myself to do things I wasn't sure I could do. For example, I would try speaking for longer periods of time, or I would tackle more difficult reading materials. I remember reading an article that was full of vocabulary I didn't know. At first, I felt overwhelmed, but I pushed through it. I took my time, looked up the words I didn't understand, and gradually worked through the article. After finishing, I felt incredibly proud of myself because I'd challenged myself and succeeded. The key here is not to be afraid of things that seem difficult. Instead of avoiding them, embrace the challenge. The more you challenge yourself, the faster you'll improve. Celebrate your achievements. As you continue to practice, It's important to celebrate your achievements, no matter how small. Recognizing your progress will help you stay motivated and remind you that all your hard work is paying off. I started celebrating my small wins along the way. Whether it was understanding a sentence in a TV show without subtitles, finishing a chapter of a book, or having a conversation in English without feeling nervous. Celebrating these moments helps you appreciate how far you've come and motivates you to keep going. Remember, it's the small steps that lead to big results. So celebrate every little achievement, because it means you're moving forward. And that's what really matters. Make learning fun. Finally, one of the best ways to never stop practicing is to make learning fun. If learning feels like a chore, it can be easy to lose motivation. But when you find ways to make it enjoyable, you'll want to keep practicing every day. For me, that meant watching movies in English, listening to music I loved, and reading articles on topics that interested me. I even joined English-speaking clubs and met people who shared the same passion for language learning. I also used games and apps to keep things fun and interactive. When you make learning enjoyable, it doesn't feel like work. It becomes something you look forward to every day. To sum up, build a daily practice routine. Even just 10-15 minutes a day can make a huge difference. Set small, achievable goals to help keep you motivated. Practice in different contexts to make learning more practical. Push yourself to use new words and phrases in real-life situations. Challenge yourself to step outside your comfort zone and take on more difficult tasks. Celebrate your achievements, no matter how small. Make learning fun so you'll enjoy practicing every day. Remember, the journey of learning English is not about perfection. It's about progress. The more you practice, the more confident you'll become, and the easier it will be to use English in your daily life. Never stop practicing, and you'll find that over time, your hard work will pay off in ways you never imagined. So, keep going, stay consistent, and enjoy the process. You've got this. Great work today. Every moment you spend practicing brings you closer to mastering your English listening and speaking skills. Remember, progress comes with patience and consistency. If this story inspired you or helped you in your learning journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Easy English Spark channel for more lessons and stories. Keep listening, keep speaking, and keep believing in your growth. I'll see you in the next video. Take care and keep shining.